Two, we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of NTAP Presents Campus Care Panel Discussions. I have with me today two lovely guests. They are coming back on our channel. And Off the record, we've been having some little bit fun. And I am aesthetic. I'm very, very excited. And I have promised them that I'll stick to the script. But आप लोग मुझे जानते हो. I rarely do that. So I have two lovely educators with me, and I would take this opportunity and एक ये surprise करते हैं. So first I'll go to Vishakha ma'am. Vishakha ma'am, could you please introduce yourself?
All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Vishakha Gupta, principal of Beacon High School and Junior College, Pune, and I have been into the educational fraternity for the past 25 plus years. Learning has never stopped and will never stop. We learn from each other, and that is the motto that I carry with me. That the day we say that we know everything, the day that's the last day of our educational career. So we are always learners, and I am here to learn from Preeti ma'am and Himanshu on whatever I can take today from this esteemed panel. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming on board. Next up, ma'am ने mention ही कर दिया. So I have with me Dr. Preeti Shrimal. Ma'am, would you please introduce yourself?
A very good afternoon to all the listeners and welcome to this panel. I'm an educationist. I call myself a progressive educationist because when we say that we need to have a growth mindset, we need to create lifelong learners. We ourselves have to be lifelong learners because we cannot use the tools of the past to teach the future generation. So I believe that we are all the custodians of the future generation, and for us, it's a very huge responsibility to make them future ready. To make them empowered with employability skills, which is something which I think India has been grappling with. I mean, we are one of the youngest countries in the world. We have such a an impressive youth, which is probably going to take up the complete workforce of the future, maybe decade or the years to come. But are we really making them ready? Have we given them, empowered them enough to take on the task of choosing the right career and having the right skills, the right mindset to be able to follow their passion and to be successful? So, as I say, I have been in a custodian. I call myself someone who really needs to take care of the future generation of the young minds, nurture them, groom them. And I've been doing that for the past 30 years, and it's been a wonderful journey. And Vishaka and we will agree on the same fact that yes, we all have to learn, we all have to move ahead, we all have to relearn as we did during in the last 2 years. So learning continues, the journey has to take on, and we are on the path of making sure that all the new ideas, all the new needs, all the new requirements of the future generation are fulfilled to some extent at the school level. We cannot do much in terms of ensuring that all these are taken ahead in the university or at the college level, but at least we can create ample learning opportunities and a mindset for children to take on challenges.
Right. All right, so let's begin our discussion for today. I'm sure you might have guessed it that from the thumbnail as well that this discussion will be on experiential learning and how it prepares students in vocational education. What are the tools? What are the tips they can grant? They can, our educators can help us in understanding. So let's begin. First to Vishakha, ma'am. Ma'am, 80% is the number. 80 to 85% to be exact. Uh, the numbers were quoted by a very renowned person, Sri Narayan Murthy of Infosys, when he mentioned that 80 to 85% of our youth are not employable, do not have employable skills. So, in that, keeping that in mind, I would like to ask, how does experiential learning helps in generating vocational education and it helps students to prepare for that.
Okay. All right. Rather than answer that first, I would ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I show you a knife and I say, see, this is a knife and this is how you chop. So you know that this product is called a knife and it's used for chopping. But then if I give you a knife in your hand and I say, okay, chop this cucumber, where would there be a better learning?
Ma'am, when I'm doing it, it's kinesthetic.
Absolutely. So that is what is experiential learning. You've answered that, you've done my work easy. When you've answered that on my behalf, experiential learning is when I make the child experience the entire scenario. Whatever he is doing, whatever he has to learn, he gets a feel and he experiences that before going into life. Now, if I'll refer to the NEP, what does the NEP say? NEP says collaborate with the institutes, collaborate with offices, collaborate with industry. So if my child is doing IT, CS, IP, whatever, and if my child goes and does an internship in one of those IT industries, he's getting a hands-on not only on the current software that is being used, he also gets to understand the working environment, he is into the safe custody zone of a school environment, which is a very safe environment as compared to a college environment, where he's thrown into an ocean. So, in a very safe environment, he gets to understand of what is IT field like, what are the factors that he would have to take care of, what are the timings, and then at that point of time, the student decides whether he is equipped and he finds it suitable, matching with his skills, whether he would be able to go ahead in that industry or not, which is very important. I have seen myself as a school principal teach people visiting my office and saying, we've done engineering, but we never found that, the catch, the interest. I always wanted to be a teacher. I said, why did you go into engineering then? No, we only knew science side, so either be an engineer or a doctor, so we went for engineering. We served into the industry for 1 or 2 years, but because of family issues and also I did not find it very interesting. But if this child would have been given an exposure of how teaching is and what are the challenges of teaching and what is engineering, if there was an industry experience, this child would have been able to decide at an earlier stage, would have not costed a seat. Another child lost a seat. So this child would have decided at that given point of time. Now, this also brings us to a very interesting fact. If we talk about teachers, the teachers who teach the syllabus, what the industry says, the syllabuses that are taught in engineering colleges, the kind of especially computing that is taught in engineering colleges is very different from the kind of computing that is really happening out there in the world. So there is a need to update our syllabus, update our curriculum. Also, given an example, let me again give you another example. I am a child of a generation where my cassette player had the play button which had to be pushed down. Right? My student is a student of a generation where he has to touch the screen and the play happens. I am from a generation where I did not have computers at school. So you must be finding me, prehistoric. But then I think we all we belong to a generation that we did not work on computers in school. We went and took a special computing course.
Hmm.
Floppy disk was something fun, fancy for us. Today the child will say, "Give me the floppy disk. It looks interesting, like the save button. I want to make it into a keychain." Right? So a teacher who did not study computer in school is teaching a child who's belonging to the touchscreen zone. So that gap has to be covered. The teacher has to understand the gap, cover that gap while teaching, and also the industry exposure is something that will make the child decide at an early stage what are his likes, dislikes, abilities, and do they match with the requirement of the industry. And then I think vocational education is something that will get a kickstart.
Hmm, 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 hmm. Okay, I am in a fix. I'm in a dilemma now whether to go off topic because you raised a very interesting point about teachers training. So, an immediate thought which popped up in my mind, that should we have a dedicated program for teachers during the summer holidays? I know there is a substantial amount of gap during summer holidays where we should also have apprenticeship program for teachers
Hmm.
in IT companies and everything, right? I'm pretty sure. And again, this was again mentioned in today's budget, that some part of vocational training would be there for teachers under DIET, I guess. That is the institute.
Direct program. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in terms of private sector, should can we also take an initiative? I would love to go to Dr. Preeta, ma'am.
Speaking.
I'm Preeti, ma'am. I'm so sorry about that. I know this question is a bit off topic, but please help me shed some light on it.
So I agree with what I think what everybody wants to find, this easy solutions, because it's always the school. Everybody is always looking at the school. What are you doing? How are you training? How are you skilling? How are you making the future generation ready with something which is called employability skills? Something which was a word not used that often. And what kind of a content are you developing? How are you increasing their knowledge? Now all this comes from one conduit, that is the teacher. A teacher here becomes a superhuman. I mean, she has to have the content, which is, of course, aligned to the curriculum which she's teaching, the grades which she's teaching. At the same time, she also has to create a mindset in all the learners that, yes, you need to find out what you're good at. You need to identify maybe that skill or that talent which will take you ahead, and may convert that skill and talent into a future career or a future profession. And that is something which is a huge task. That's a gap which
Right.
needs to be bridged by the teachers. But I can only bridge the gap when I myself am trained enough to bridge that gap. I mean, if I'm asking my students that yes, you need to take up something like, things like a dietitian's course, because those are things which are coming up, or you need to become a research scientist, or you need to go into the pharmacy and maybe do some kind of patent development, or do some kind of an develop some other ways and means of using your your knowledge of chemistry to evolve and develop some new medications or some new processes. So I feel in order to train teachers, definitely we will have to start vocational programs for them. But someday I also need to understand the interest of the teacher. I mean, a science teacher needs to be trained in those kind of streams wherein she can give complete guidance in collaboration and assistance with the industry, with the experts, with the resource people who are working there in the field. We can call somebody from the pharmacy industry to talk about how how they need to develop a skill set, how they need to develop their mindset to be able to groom themselves 10 years down the line. Same way, we can call somebody maybe from the ITIs to again guide the teachers, because teachers will need expert guidance to be able to teach, to be able to guide, and to be able to inspire the students to take up uh, courses and professions which are actually going to give them an opportunity to earn, to be able to make a difference, and of course to become more and more self-independent. When we say of sustaining themselves, when we talk about becoming, uh, developing a kind of a multidisciplinary approach personality, and I think that's what is required. Teachers today need to be multidisciplined. They need to have a multi-pronged approach to teaching and learning, and that can only come with industry support, with the experts pitching in, with the industry walking into the school. I think all of you will agree. I cannot teach something different and they want something different outside. I mean, there has to be a sync between what we are teaching, how we are grooming, how we are developing skill sets, to what the industry wants in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, in terms of competency. So we were just to throw a little bit of light upon how the council, that's the SISKI, which is my school, is of course an ICSE school, has introduced some very interesting vocational courses. It's courses like a lab technician course. Then it's something like an assistant hairstylist, which is a very interesting course. Then there is a course which is a cashier's course. Now, we all know that as leaders, there is so much that even I need to know in terms of handling finance, in terms of handling money, because that's something which we cannot just wean away from our lives. So these are some, and there's something which is very interesting, which is the a basic, of course, the data entry operators. So half the time we are also most of the time grappling with how to manage data, how to streamline data. So these are some very interesting vocational courses which have been introduced this year. And to develop these courses and to meet the objectives of the courses, they've given us a complete blueprint of how it needs to be done. Now, my next question is, who will teach it? I mean, if I have to introduce a Vishaka, you would agree with me. If I could introduce something like an assistant beauty therapist course, so I will obviously have to train my teachers in that vocational skill, in that particular domain, to be able to ensure that justice is being done in the new courses which are being introduced.
Ma'am,
So,
so sorry, ma'am. I thought to barge in between. Don't you think so? Rather than doing that, uh, the more practical solution, because till what time you can do that, because there are, and the courses that you're saying, I can guarantee you, because I've been doing these webinars, and the courses which you mentioned, I also published an article and I called them offbeat career options, right? And I mentioned now, in looking at 2030, you got to be data analyst, not just data entry operator. Data analytics is the,
just to pitch in,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that is the first step to them
Right,
creating
right.
a kind of an, developing a curiosity, and then a self-learning mind, a kind of a process by which they will learn themselves. So we have to develop that kind of a perspective in the students as well,
Right.
that they should be able to know what data. Data is a big word; everybody talks about it, but what is data? So we begin with small steps, and then probably gauge the interest of the child, understand where the passion lies. Is he actually cut out for that particular field? So there's a lot which needs to be first identified, where we need to filter and then align the passion, the skill, and the opportunities available. You
Right.
never know, maybe 10 years down the line when these children pass out, there may not be a data. There may be, when we move to artificial intelligence, there may be some kind of a skill required. So those are big challenges which we need. I mean, we talk about hairstylists. Maybe we'll just have robots coming and
Right.
doing the work which all these human resources are doing.
And honestly, to be very honest, it's not far fetched. I have six uh, artificially intelligent tools at my disposal
Yes.
currently, which I'm using right now to develop content and everything. And it is so amazing that it has literally cut down my, I can cut down my team, and I
Yes.
shouldn't say this live, because they would also be watching. I can cut down my team size in half because I have artificially intelligent tools. I have automation. Okay, so moving there to, I have a very special surprise entry, and ma'am has a lovely background going on right now. I'm pretty sure ma'am is in the school because she hails from a place where I used to live. I shifted to a new place, and ma'am is from Alaknanda. I used to stay in GK2. I've spent my entire childhood over there. I've spent somewhere around 17, 18 years, roughly. So let me just quickly mention Dr. Anju Mehrotra. Ma'am, could you please introduce yourself? Ma'am, I guess you're on mute, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, good evening. Namaskar, everyone. It's
Namaste, ma'am.
nice to hear Dr. Preeti, Vishakhaji, and of course, Evergreen Himanshu, right?
Thank you.
Always chirpy, always, a good learner. So that's really great. And he's doing a good job, and keeping everybody busy all the time on toes. So this is really a good thing. And
Thank
that's what I think, especially during COVID and after that, we are really trying to pitch in and trying to gear up with that. So I think we are talking about experiential learning. That's right. And of course, as Vishaka and Dr. Preeti, they were just mentioning that how we need to train our teachers, to make them, of course, I must say, environment friendly and the organizational climate friendly. because the kind of vision and mission you have for your organization or institution, your teachers, they need to understand that point and they need to be really friendly with that. Only then you will be able to achieve some kind of target what you are looking for. So, of course, learning objectives are very, very important, but then time has come when we need to emphasize more on learning outcomes, so that outcome is more important than our objective. I don't say, though they are very much correlated, that's absolutely fine, but something that comes out of it, even though sometimes different pedagogy need to be adopted, some kind of interdisciplinary approach, probably say multidisciplinary approach, or different kinds of ways, which have to be adopted, but we must reach to our learning outcome. So that becomes very, very important. And what I feel is that, as Dr. Preeti was mentioning, that she has introduced certain skill subjects in the school. Similarly, even I have also introduced, in our group, a lot of skill subjects from last, say, 2, 3 years, like marketing, retailing, food and nutrition, this first aid, healthcare. These are the programs, which are very, very apt and again, very suitable to the present circumstances, to the contemporary time, when our children need to understand, that what is happening outside the world means outside their school. In the school, they get a very, very protected environment, through their teachers, through parents, everything is so clear to them, and it's a complete ladder. Say, right, so 12 years life or 14 years life is absolutely secured the moment they enter the first step of the school. So 14 years, okay, done. But what after 14 years? So it is our responsibility, to train them to face what is going to be there after those 14 years. It's a skill training. It's a life skill, in fact, which has to be developed. That, in fact, the skill needs to be generated, and the curiosity has to be generated, that it must continue for those 14 years, so that they are able to face those kind of challenges, which would actually be very different, since the changes are so rapid. You see the tremendous changes which have taken place from last 2, 3 years only. If we see, certainly the things have really changed. So we need to prepare our students for next, say, 14 years,
Right.
to few, say, 10 years and all. So it's a journey, for their life. So life skills, I always feel that they are more important than anything else. Percentage and academics, everything would be taken care of if the children are resilient, if they are peaceful, if they are mentally healthy. These things are more important. That's what I feel, and that's what my vision and the vision of our group is. So, and when it comes to the courses, the skill subjects like say hairstylist and all that. See, for that, instead of training our teachers, I would always prefer that we must call the experts, from that particular industry only, right? Let them come. Like, just a few days back, we introduced one subject, which is called as plumbing. It was just 6 hours, you can say, a skill subject, just 6 hours we had to give. So I called my plumber. He was very happy, initially. Like, in fact, he was surprised that why ma'am is calling me and she's taking me to the classroom. Probably something has gone wrong over there. So he came with all his tools and everything. So just when I took him to the classroom, and the children were also surprised. See, now he is your teacher, right? He knows the basic concepts, of plumbing. So he is showing his tools. Children are learning. He is also happy. The children, they know that they are learning this particular skill, from that person only who is actually working. It's hands on.
Doing
Who
the
is a plumber in school, in our institution? to
is
to
it
that,
me?
and this was screw, to that. So they went back home, and after that, coming and sharing the experience that, ma'am, today in our place, the tap was leaking, and since I had learned this technique, so I repaired my tap. The student was so happy, the parents were so happy that this is what they are learning, and equally, the plumber, he was so happy that he got the chance, you know, talk to the students. I need to when to go to the class and to show his and from that particular area only, like electrician, they can be called just to give them the proper techniques. I mean, there was a time, when the commerce students, say they once they stepped out of the school, they never knew even how to fill up the check, to go to the bank and even to get the check filled up over their slip and all that. But since now the things have really changed, so more of through our experience and through we can say, the competency based things, it is really important, to develop their competency rather than anything else. But equal emphasis has to be given to the demand of the industry, right? Because the gap has to be bridged when it comes to the school education and the industry. Until unless these two, as our NEP also says, we need to bridge this gap.
Right.
Lots of institutions which are working on it. That's absolutely fine. And NEP, of course, we all, you know, there are a lot of things which we have already been working on. But since this policy has come up, so obviously, a lot more emphasis would be given on it. And keeping that thing only in mind,
Ma'am,
uh,
I am losing you in between. There is some un- uh,
that we need to really either extinct or extinct. So that's the
is it my network
point.
which is not?
We need to do something which is very very different, extinctively, and let it be. And we are
Anju
yes,
ma'am,
but it
Anju
should be
ma'am,
different. So everybody start doing
so
it.
sorry to interfere,
Yes,
Anju ma'am.
let's start working on it.
Oh
And,
my, ma'am, uh,
yeah.
ma'am, your signal is quite
So the
weak.
ultimate, so the ultimate funda is either distinct or extinct.
Right. Ma'am, your signal is quite weak. I would request you if you could just log in from the laptop. We lost you for a while in there. But
Okay.
I get the gist when you mentioned we got your plumbing, how you introduced the plumber.
Yeah.
My point is, and now I'll switch to Vishakha ma'am. Meanwhile, Anju ma'am, if you could just fix up your internet very quickly, that'll be great.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
I don't want to lose you because I always have great conversations with you.
No,
So, so
I'll be there. I'll be there.
all
Yeah,
right, ma'am. All right, ma'am. Vishakha, ma'am. Moving over to you very quickly. Anju, ma'am said vocational trainings and you know how she introduced the plumber and everything. My point is, and she also mentioned uh, bringing in experts from the industry itself. Correct? Because there are certain limitations we cannot nobody can be jack of all trades. I mean, I do say, I have a saying, I say that to my team also, that you have to be jack of all trades, and but you have to be an expert and master in one, and you should have knowledge of everything but an expertise in one thing. That is the most important fact. Now my point is, and I can also think of various ways where the school can also do marketing when they bring in experts. Like ma'am said about hairstylists, we can you can bring in Javed Habib. He's the renowned person. Do a workshop with Javed Habib. Your school also gets marketing. But then again, my point is, I'm talking about being drone pilots. I'm talking about being, pet stylist rather than home hairstylist.
I understand your question, and if I may interrupt, you're talking about offbeat careers.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
talking about a chocolate tastier, a wine tastier, an underwater diver,
Yes, ma'am.
a pearl hunter. All right. See, there is something that the NEP has very, very clearly and categorically stated. It talks about collaboration. So if Preeti Ma'am's school has access to a chocolate tastier, she will organize a webinar for her students as well as all the schools that are close by in the periphery and arrange a chocolate tastier who would address the children. My school, if I have an access to a pearl diver, will be made available to my the schools in my area. A little ago we had something in CBSE called the hubs of learning. The hubs of learning worked on the concept of sharing knowledge. So if I had somebody in my school or somebody known to me who had access to such vocational stuff, that it would be shared on a common platform. Because we are not talking of my school and your school, we are talking about our children. We're talking about the future of the nation.
Right.
And when it is nation first, then we are not talking about why should I share. It is always sharing, caring, and taking it ahead. So CBSE has already stated this, and NEP has already clearly stated that we have to collaborate and exchange ideas, have to share. So if there are five schools nearby or six schools nearby, or even for that matter, ma'am's school in a different city state, my school in a different city state, but if we collaborate, and not necessarily that we physically bring these people in the campus, but we share their knowledge, expertise, what they do over a video conference also, CBSE is quite okay with that.
Wonderful. So, thank you so much for giving me that idea. I
Yes.
don't know about all the schools, but I will definitely make sure, because you know I'm a passionate, and you know me, ma'am. You know me, I'm very passionate about these workshops and everything. In fact, I did a webinar. I saw, I don't know now. I don't remember. I read an article somewhere, and I saw, or maybe I saw an advertisement of Samsung or something, wherein it was sign language day or something of that sort. I don't remember. And it was talking about we are so unappreciative towards these people. And when I'm saying these people, it's sort of labeling them. I don't want to label anybody. I'm afraid of labels, to be very honest. When we talk about, you know, people who cannot, people having hearing disabilities or speaking disabilities, I'm deaf and mute, right? So should we introduce some sign language course or in our curriculum, or maybe a vocational training, something of that sort? But I know that is an
See,
added
Himanshu,
burden to students.
CBSE has given us a long list. See, we as principals very closely stick to our boards. We don't want to go away from there because if we introduce something new, we don't mind doing that, but whatever our boards tell us, we have to follow. So we first see what the board states and then we look at other things. So we do not mind doing these sign languages. We do not mind taking such courses, but there are so many things that the NEP and CBSE is already listed. If you see the list of life skills that have been introduced and that can be taken up as teaching subjects in school, wherein the practical and the theory weightage is absolutely 50-50. 50 marks of practicals
Wow.
and 50 marks of theory. Believe me, what has there's an open box of possibilities that lies in front of us.
Right.
And for that matter, if I talk about skill subjects in class 10, if a child has taken a skill subject and his or her marks, it has to be taken as a sixth subject. So in one of the five major subjects, if the child scores lesser marks, this skill subject's percentage will be used to compute his percentage.
Oh, wow.
So things have been already put into action. I don't know how many people know of it. I'm sure the principals would be aware of this. But this is already incorporated. So where are we not? We have an entire access. The other day we were in discussion with our regional officer, and I am a part of the core Sahodya of Pune. So we were having a Sahodya meeting with the regional officer. Believe me, he says, "आप लोग करो इतना कुछ है जो CBSE ने आपको करने के लिए दिया है. Do it, collaborate, exchange ideas, share resources." CBSE is, but I belong to a CBSE school. That is why I constantly say CBSE. Preeti ma'am would be wondering why is Vishaka not saying ICSE. But sorry, ma'am, no offenses. We are so kind of rooted into that. So CBSE is so very open and is supportive of what the schools do. Right?
Right.
There are plethora of courses offered. You don't have a resource, ask, exchange, take it. That is also what CBSE says. So what else remains to be done? We just have to put it into implementation. But as I started by saying, give the child a live access. So, for example, like what Dr. Anju was saying, we have it very regularly. We have the helpers week. So parents were like, what helpers week? You will again get a doctor, you will again get a policeman, and they are the community helpers. I said, no. My child also needs to understand that an electrician is a helper, a plumber is a helper, a carpenter is a helper, right? Even the maids and the aunties in the school are helpers. And when my children fed those aunties, they felt really great, but then these aren't careers. We have to train our children in terms of vocation that they would take ahead in life, and we have to prepare them beforehand. We have to give them a scenario, whether a simulated one or a live one, where they get to understand, decide, and gauge whether their skill sets match with the skill sets of that industry or not, or they still have time to divert and take go into another field which matches with their skill set and interests, so that they are not the losers of tomorrow. India again is moving towards making India and what the kind of nation we are coming up with. We will no longer be a country of job seekers. We'll be a country of job givers.
Yes, ma'am.
And for that, each child needs to understand his core skills. And giving a secure environment to explore those skills is the responsibility of not only the parents but also the school. In a very secure environment, let us introduce them to those skills. See, I cannot take them to an ocean and say, okay, dive and understand what a pole diver does. But if I make the children interact, and he says, okay, इतना deep जाना पड़ता है, इतना पानी का pressure होता है, and a child who has fear of water, he will realize it's not deep, I can't. With that oxygen cylinder on my back, will make him think twice about taking that career. क्योंकि जब उसको मालूम पड़ेगा पर ड्राइवर 1 लाख रुपए 5 लाख रुपए 10 लाख रुपए महीना कमाता है तो वो बहुत अट्रैक्टिव लगेगा. But then do I have the skills to match that? That is the question which needs to be answered.
Right. Wonderfully said, ma'am. You answered most of my questions, and not most of my questions, but then that excitement which I always have, you've calmed me down for offbeat careers and everything. So kudos to you, and thank you so much for that. All right, Preeti, ma'am. My next thing which I would like to know is, uh, so ma'am spoke about collaborations. So, do we have a scope in that same thing to collaborate, or do you have the scope, as in the schools have the scope, to collaborate with private entities? And when I talk about private entities, I mean conducting, maybe a crash of workshop for just like Anju ma'am said, 6 hours workshop of plumbing, or 6 hours workshop of pet hairstyle, pet stylist, pet grooming. It's called. I remember now. It's called pet grooming, or maybe a drone pilot, or maybe robotics, or something of that sort.
So definitely, what Ms. Vishaka said is the need of the hour. We have to ensure that what I have in terms of my personality, what I am good at, what are my competencies, need to match what I take up in the future. I mean, I cannot be scared of seeing blood and then aspire to become a doctor. Again, if I'm very scared of, there are children who say that no, I cannot touch electricity because I feel scared. That yes, I might just probably because of something which has happened. So we need to understand what we are good at, and in order to make them give a wider exposure of what they are good at, we collaborate with industries. We also have something which we call the incubation centers. There are colleges here which are offering that and opening their doors to schools. So there's an incubation center where probably they have a workshop completely on something like what is AI all about, or they have a workshop on food and the food industry. So they have a workshop on environment. So what are the different ways of farming? What are the different ways of gardening when we are living in a concrete jungle? So we have industries, we have local NGOs, we have a lot of these small organizations which are actually approaching the schools because they know that schools are the breeding ground for promoting their way of thought processes. For example, there was something like which is called Parma farming. Now, we had this NGO which actually approached us and they spoke to us all about what Parma farming is, because we know about organic farming and we know about kitchen gardening, but this was a step ahead. So this was a wonderful experience which my students were given a chance to do a hands-on learning. We gave them a plot of land because we knew that giving them a plot of land was something which I could actually take the risk of ensuring that they can learn something. It's all about environment. It's also about finding new and better means of introducing something like gardening. Now, over there, we only identified and selected the students who were interested in gardening. So, that is where we need to work upon. And then, of course, the ones who were interested in gardening, they took time out to ensure that they are able to cater and groom and look after that piece of land which was given to them and not consider it as a burden. Just because we've given it to them, no, because I like gardening, so, and I want to pursue it further and I want to explore this. So there are incubation centers, there are a lot of colleges which have now opened up their doors. They have single day workshops, they have experts also coming to the school and conducting workshops based on the different streams. Over here, we have to identify what is it exactly that I want my, let's begin with grade 9 or 10 students to get exposure to. What is it that my profiling, a parent profiling and a student profiling comes into the picture here? What are they looking at? So are they looking at something like, as simple as just taking up some career in maybe medicine, or are they looking at something like doing clinic, psychology? Psychology is a very popular and a wide field. So are they looking at having inclusion, pursuing inclusion as part of their future careers? Because like you just now said, wherever children get an exposure to help out, to we create that kind of an empathy in them, we might just garner and channelize those students to different streams. So giving them lots of exposure, giving them myriad learning opportunities, and not just restricting them. And that is done through collaboration, through incubation centers. We request the industries. We have a lot of the hospitals are opening their doors. We have a lot of these the hardware industries, the when we say the factories which are there. So there definitely we have to collaborate. We have to ensure that they give that kind of a guidance to the students, and they are able to open up their windows. The mental processes, that this is what engineering is. Everybody wants to become an engineer, but do you really know what are the different streams of engineering? There's an electrical, then there's a mechanical, and then it goes on. So are we really telling them and showing them the exact picture, the big picture, as we say? Everybody wants to become a doctor, everybody wants to become a computer engineer, but there is so much more. So definitely we have to slice it and give them the complete, a playground of possibilities, opportunities, career options, and then give them some time, collaborate with parents also, collaborate with experts who can find out. We have a lot of diagnostic tests done, we have a lot of other kind of aptitude tests done, which do matter. Knowing their mindset, knowing their skills, knowing their competencies, knowing their personality types. If I'm an introvert, then maybe I can pick up that kind of a stream and field, which will provide me a proper career aligned to my skill sets, which is very, very important. Half the time we realized during the COVID that that gave them an opportunity to suddenly ignite their passion. Oh, I so there's so many who've actually given up well-paying corporate meaty jobs and taken up very, very offbeat careers. Something like even becoming a DJ. Everybody loves music. Everybody wants to make a career, but do you exactly know what it is to become a DJ or a stand-up comedian?
Well,
So
I
those
was
are
about to say stand-up comedian.
so these are things which they love seeing and with which they can connect. So if I can connect with something, these are all the future generation where maybe we can start igniting them, and we can start processing them into a very, very different path. Go off the beaten track, the path which is less taken.
Right.
So
Like I
And
was.
Panshu, if I may just add,
Yes,
I would
ma'am.
like to tell you what CBSE says in this regard.
Right, ma'am.
Because then if the question changes, then we lose track and move on. CBSE talks about 10 bagless days.
yes,
Yes, those 10 bagless days are meant for such kind of activities and trainings.
Ma'am, what could you?
10 bagless days.
10 bagless days. Okay.
Yeah, so
And
just to give the what ICSE board also has prescribed and given us a complete plethora of activities which we
Right.
can
So
in
when you
those
were
10
talking about
bagless
how
days.
is that 6 hour of training
Yes.
possible and how to train the children, we have those 10 backless
Yes.
days to take this forward.
In a
both,
month or in an entire year?
both entire
Year,
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 entire year.
Ma'am,
year.
only 10 days. Come on. Yeah.
10 days, 8 hours. 8 hours per day, 80 hours. You plan your workshops.
Okay, fine. I
Right?
will.
Okay. Second
But,
thing
but
I was talking about was gardening. Believe me, eco farming is very in. People are leaving their lucrative jobs to get into eco farming. So this is one very good way of getting children into that. And then skill universities are being set up. Pune has the Symbiosis Skills University, the Flames University that talks about skills. They have faculties that visit or even they allow campus tours for children to go and explore these. So even skill universities are being set up for skill enhancement and children to take these courses. Thank you for allowing me that.
Right. And eco farming, um, people have left their corporate jobs, and I was actually, I'll be honest with you, and I have been researching my generation, my ancestor. I'm a native of Himachal, so my grandfather was a land feudal lord sort of a person. I don't want to go over there. And so I was also thinking about, what sort of new techniques, and there's so much people are doing in farming. I was shell shocked. There's hydroponics, there's vermicomposting, and there is so much aquaponics, fisheries, pearl diving. You mentioned people are doing pearl farming, and it's a massive money making business. So I get fascinated by these things as well. But very rightly said. So 10 bagless days, I will definitely work on it. I'll try to capture all your 10 bagless days, and because I'll get experts, and I'm making this a promise. I'll get experts. I'll get all of you together, maybe whether a virtual or I'll try a physical workshop. That is my promise to you, because I've always been focusing on doing this. All right. Uh, from there to Anju ma'am. Anju ma'am, I hope you're on
Yeah.
your Wi-Fi now.
Yes. I think
Okay.
it's working now. It's perfectly all right.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. You were in such a beautiful environment, and I got you inside. I'm so sorry for that. Uh, right, ma'am. My next and the last, because this conversation has been going on for almost an hour, and I know आप लोग बहुत मुझे पीटोगे अगर मैंने आपका ज़्यादा टाइम लिया. योर टाइम इज़ वेरी वैल्यूएबल, एंड मेरे को बात करना बहुत पसंद है, एंड सो आई गेट टू द पॉइंट. So ma'am, Anju ma'am,
Yes.
very quickly, we talk about all these factors, and the biggest important factor why schools should be doing is that when I was a child, my attention span was, or my generation's attention span was 2 minutes.
Mm.
The kids now have dropped the attention span to 15 seconds.
15
In
seconds.
in
Yes.
the first 15 seconds, if it doesn't click, they will stop responding to you. And
Mm.
I am into digital marketing. I have an Instagram handle, and it is such a vicious loop that once you start scrolling your mobile device, आपको पता भी नहीं चलता आपके 1.5 2 घंटे कहाँ चले गए.
Right.
Right? So ma'am,
Mm.
how can, and let's be honest, rote learning has a challenge in that. And how are you going to practically tackle that?
See, rote learning is a history now, and what I feel is that teaching itself has become very, very challenging these days, because the children, they know a lot of things, even beforehand, especially after COVID. Everything is available online. You have got lots of YouTube channels related to the lessons, their syllabus. Everything is available, right? Even other lectures are available. So for teachers, it is more challenging that when they are coming to to the classroom, they have to serve them something which is very, very different, which is not available anywhere. Otherwise, why would the child come to the school and why would the child come to the classroom, right? So it has to be very, very different. Different in the sense that it, of course, it has to be related with the syllabus, but something which is not available anywhere. So teachers have to really work very hard for it. It has become challenging for them, and this is one of the reasons that we need to really train them, say for the competency based things, competency based questions which are more of application kind, than just the syllabus related, right? So this becomes one aspect wherein, how to grab their attention so that they should not go haywire in the class, and the classroom discipline also has to be maintained. So for that, one thing very important is the teacher should prepare their lesson beforehand, which should not just be related, which with the theory, right? But it should be something which is hands on, and student and the teacher, they have to together, they have to construct the knowledge, right? That becomes very important. This is a theory what we call as constructivism. So when they construct the knowledge on their own, together, probably they will be able to reach up to something, which is not available anywhere. The students' role is equally important, but the teachers, when they prepare their lessons, they go to the class and present them what they have prepared. So more of hands-on activities, more of learning by doing, right? Constructing the knowledge together, project-based learning, and I endorse what has been said earlier, that since it's all about collaboration these days, so we need to collaborate also. Maybe a particular teacher, she's not that strong, on a particular say topic, on a particular theme, that can always be shared with some other teacher as well. So we need to collaborate now. It can be a team learning, it can be a team teaching as well, right? So there have to be certain kind of new pedagogical techniques which we need to adopt to make this generation, right, to really grab and to really make them sit for a while for 30-40 minutes, and yes, they are now ready to listen to their teachers. So this is one aspect, but another is what I find, that when we have the hubs of learning as well, when we have all these 21st century skills, we have the skill subjects, everything is all right. But at the end of it, it is very important that we must sensitize our children towards the community as well. Dignity of labor, they need to understand, though we have already headed
Yes.
towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, make in India. We are talking about all the basic projects which our government has launched or which CBSE is launching. The children have all been introduced to that. One side, it should not be too much. Another is that this is something which they are able to relate to themselves. So the purpose of whole education is to make them good human beings. This end of the day, we should not forget. Life skills are very important, right? Whether they do any hands-on activity or they get the experiential learning, they get the industry exposure, the community sensitization is also there. All these aspects would be touched upon, but the the baseline is be human. They need to understand that their humanity, if they know the life skills, if they have learned basic life skills, they will be able to sail through any kind of challenges in their life. I mean, I really focus on all these things. We do take care of the classroom environment as well, because we believe that the education or the learning has to be joyful. It has to be joyful. So the happy teacher only will be able to create the happy environment in the classroom. So we need to make our teachers happy first, right? When they are happy, the happy classroom will be created. And when the happy classrooms are there, the the bubbles, you can say, that are being generated from there, we will be able to get the happy citizens, which is very important,
Right.
especially in the scenario when we see, we are, on a very later rank when it comes to the happiness index as well. So this is something which the children need to understand. And I really endorse what Vichakaji was saying, that the hubs of learning are there, and we have different schools, where we can share our resources, we collaborate with them, and we emphasize more on say critical thinking. It is all about the students need to prepare their own their portfolios. They have to prepare their own dossiers. This is the assessment, which is a 360-degree assessment, wherein the child himself, it's one aspect is the self assessment, another is the peer assessment, and we also have the teacher's assessment, right? But the most significant of all these 360-degree dimension would be the self assessment, wherein the child should be honest, right? He should understand that what he has understood out of the whole system, right? So he should be able to give his own assessment, and that too in a honest and sincere manner. So this is that particular aspect which probably has been ignored, throughout. It's not that the schools have been promoting, the value education, moral science, and the other aspects, the other subjects as well. That has been going on, but this is the time, especially after NEP coming up, we feel that this particular aspect, this component of our education system needs to be promoted, wherein the children's contribution towards the society, when we see the scenario where they are heading, they need to be respectful to their teachers. Especially the incident, I'm sure everybody must be knowing, when the external examiner and the observer coming up, and the student, stabbing that external examiner. So that kind of scenario, if it is happening, yes, off
What?
late. This is just recently, January 23, 2023, 12th class examinations. This has happened in Delhi, right? So that this is something, the kind of environment which is there in the society, the culture what we are creating. So everything is important, but the most important thing is that the children need to be respectful towards their teachers. So community sensitization and teachers respect comes first. I mean, it's how our education, is which way it is going, how it is heading. Everything has to be taken into consideration. So what I emphasize mostly, on their, of course, IQ is very much there, and
Ma'am,
then
ma'am, can I
EQ.
barge in? Ma'am, can I barge in? To be very honest, I do not agree on this point in your favor only, because let
Hmm,
me tell you, there
hmm,
is no school in this country, and this is based on my personal experience as well, which
hmm.
does not teach respecting our elders. It is
No,
not
that's
from school's angle, ma'am, it is an home angle. Trust me, it is an home angle.
see. I don't say that somebody has to teach them.
Yes,
This cannot be taught. This is a value, and values cannot be taught. They can only be caught. Point
ma'am, they
is that
have to be
we
nurtured, right?
respectful environment. Respectful learning environment has to be created in the organization, right? No parent would also teach the children. You go and disrespect your
Huh.
teacher. No parent would teach, and no teacher would teach that you disrespect the other one. That is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because they are being
Anjumam, I'm
they
sorry, but I
are
would like to interrupt.
no here
Anjumam,
that they are being exposed to many things untimely, which they should not have been. The children, especially, because they are not. This is not age appropriate, especially.
Anjuman, I would like to
Yeah.
interrupt here and
Mm,
say that I agree with him, Anshu, somehow,
mm,
because if you see the kind of schooling these days, and
mm.
I think most of the schools would agree when we say this, initially, if the child made a mistake, went home and complained, the child was scolded, you must have done something wrong. But today, the child is told, okay, your teacher scolded you, let me go and speak to the principal, how dare the teacher did this. So
Yeah,
the values are changing. So it is not entirely school, it is also the parents. And I was in discussion with Mr. Abdul today. He's from the UK and he's working on the UK education system. The four key skills. There are 10 key skills that 20 by 2025 our children should have. Otherwise, they will start phasing out of the race. And the four key ones out of those are problem solving, self
yeah,
management,
mm,
working with people. And children need to learn how to work with people in group
yeah,
safely. And the fourth one is technology use and development. I
Yes,
have my notes that I'm referring to when I was speaking to Mr. Abdul. I made those notes, and out of these four, they've been again highlighted and kind of diversified into 10 skills. We are in
yes.
shortage of time, paucity of time. Otherwise, I would have discussed them. But there
No,
are
that's
beautiful
my
10 skills.
no. I understand what you are saying. My point is not that this it is the responsibility only of the school. See, it is always a triangular relationship. Without the support of the parents, the schools cannot do anything.
Right.
The basic objective and the basic who is our focus is the child.
It's a
But then
child.
without the teachers and without the parents, we will not be able to really groom the child. So the point
Hmm.
arises, it is always a two-way traffic, until unless the parents support us, no parent could say. But my point here is that how it has happened, how it has happened. This, I mean, our society where it is heading, where it
Hmm.
is heading.
Hmm.
So we need to train our students, in that direction, that the skills, the values are very, very important. What do they carry from home, that is a different thing. That is a different thing. Okay,
Ma-
because a family background also matters a lot. So here the emphasis would always be on car. They need to drive a car, car that says see that says that you change the changeable. Something where the changes can be brought about. Let's change that. A is accept the unchangeable. We need to accept something what we cannot change. No changes can be brought about, right? So accept that, and it will be peaceful for everyone only. So the students would also understand. And R that says that we need to reform, and then reflect upon it, and then we move ahead. So when reform and reflection takes place, right, that everybody understands, and the car really moves ahead. So we all, as far as our education system is concerned, we all, our focus is the child, the development, right, the basic grooming of the child to make them as good human beings. So we all will contribute, but not without the help of the parents. So obviously, we need to collaborate with the parents. We need to take them into
Hmm.
confidence, right? And because if we say there are problem children, more than that, there are problem parents. So we need to tackle to those parents first. So those parents they need to be tackled first, right? So that becomes important. But then, end of it, they need to understand that uh, to learn something and to experience something and to get themselves, into the industry and the community, their role as human beings is very important. So once they understand all this, right, probably we'll be on the right track. That's my purpose. That is what I really want to say.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for saying that and for clarifying that. I understand your perspective as well, but and I understand Vishakha ma'am's perspective as well. The whole idea why I do these webinars all the time is basically more than raising a good human being. I want to have some part in playing raising responsible citizens because
Yes.
and when you mentioned, when Preeti ma'am also mentioned, and when Vishakha ma'am also mentioned, one thing, Vishakha ma'am mentioned Helpers Week. You
Another
mentioned,
thing, I would just like to say responsible citizens who can contribute to the growth of the nation
right,
and also at
Yes.
the global level. So they should
right,
have contribute in whichever way they can.
right,
That is extremely important.
right,
Hmm.
and in
So
a
they should have
positive
that kind
manner.
of an empathy. They should also have that kind of a vision to be able to make change. Like Pam just now said, change
Huh?
what you can
Right.
and
Hmm.
definitely reform and reflect upon what needs to be changed. So
And
Hmm.
that's what I'm
contribution,
saying. That's what I'm
yes.
saying. One of the most important factor, and this I see, it lagged in my generation, it lagged in upcoming generation, is the dignity of labor.
Dignity of labor. Yes.
Ma'am, that's the most important factor. When we show that no, you have to respect the prime minister as well as in at the same level you have to respect the plumber as well. That's where and वही कोई काम बड़ा छोटा नहीं होता जो हम नॉर्मल भाषा में बोलते हैं, right? There's no work which is beneath your level. Respect the other person, right? And there was a very famous photograph which went viral, or a meme which went viral, wherein there were it was a stark example of being educated and being literate. A literate,
Lit.
a literate mother said to her child that पढ़ेगा नहीं तो उसकी तरह काम करेगा. There was a sweeper on the road, right?
Mm,
But an educated mother said, and that's the point of view which I want to gauge in, always want
mm,
to gauge in, कि अगर पढ़ेगा नहीं तो इसकी मदद कैसे करेगा? So
mm.
that's the society we have to build upon.
Yes, yes.
We have to uplift everyone on a holistic level, on a mental level, on an intellectual level, and that's the purpose of that's my purpose of doing these webinars. And thank you so much, Vishaka ma'am. Thank you so much, Anju ma'am. Thank you so much, Preeti ma'am. I took more of your time, I know.
So
Uh,
I'll just end, I think, on behalf of the three of us, because we're talking about vocational education and experiential learning. There are very famous lines that I would like to end our discussion on. Teach me and I forget. Tell me I forget. Teach me and I may remember, but make me do it and I will learn forever.
right,
I will never.
right, right,
Have to make them do things with it.
Yes.
It's like the skill of the hand, the head, heart, and hand.
And
So
how-
And heart.
it has to be a balance of all three.
Three H. Three H. So
so
Three
H is
edges.
thank you so
important.
much, lovely panelists and my educators. Thank you so much. I again learned a lot, and I hope I could add some value or some sort of insight today. So, and to those who are watching us on YouTube, I didn't forget you. I know you're also watching us on LinkedIn as well. So, just mention in the comments what were some key takeaways for you. I'll meet you again tomorrow or maybe day after tomorrow for with some other people or maybe with the same people. I don't know. So we can work that out on some other interesting topic. And today, the biggest key takeaway for me is to utilize those 10 bagless days for all the kids in India, and especially with these three lovely ladies with us. So, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Have a nice day. And
Thank you.
I'll give you a call after this what NTAB has been doing in the field of experiential learning. I'll showcase. I'll need to demonstrate some digital content and everything, which I forgot because I got carried away in the conversation. So don't worry. I really apologize.
Okay. Okay. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Thank you. Bye, ma'am. Take care. God bless you. Bye,
bye,
ma'am.
bye.
अरे मैं भूल ही जाता हूँ यार. Such a lovely conversation.